Hello, Calvary. We are going to rock the most popular verse in North America. And I'm not really making that up. I think the Bible app, the most famous Bible app on the App Store, has this verse, Philippians 4:13, as the most highlighted or memorized verse in America, at least last year, and I'm sure it's still very popular. In fact, I'm sure it's going to be even more popular this year. So this is good. Let's look at it. What is the most highlighted verse in the Bible, most likely? 4:13. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Sometimes people memorize it as I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. All right, let's read it in context. The Apostle Paul, writing from prison to his church, he says, I rejoiced in the Lord greatly. Notice the rejoicing again. That now at length you have revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. Not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low and how to abound in any and every circumstance. I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. All right, so what's going on here? You may remember Paul's in prison, and what's happened is that he has received a gift from the church. He's received some kind of financial support. And so when he's talking about the church reviving their concern for Paul, that's what it means. It means that he has now received another influx of support. He's been brought some cash. I'm not sure how every prison ran in the first century, but very likely if Paul was going to eat, it was going to be because someone brought him food. I don't think the Romans decided that they were going to be spending a lot of money feeding their prisoners. Like, you're in prison, why would we feed you? They weren't really known for human rights or anything like that. So he's received this gift from them, and he's wanting to receive this gift in a way that teaches the Philippians how to follow Jesus. And so he receives it with joy. That's how it starts off. They gave him this gift to support him out of love, and so he's receiving it from the Lord with joy. I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that you've revived your concern for me. And then he wants to tweak it again, because he's not saying that they didn't care before, but he's saying, you were concerned for me, but you didn't have an opportunity. So as I understand it, somebody has come to visit Paul from Philippi, and this was their opportunity to do something. They've seized the opportunity to care for Paul because somebody was leaving Philippi and going to see Paul in prison. And then he wants to say, though, not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I've learned in whatever situation I am to be content. Now, I'm assuming that Paul is thinking to himself, this church in Philippi could very easily be in the same situation I'm in, and I don't want them to learn to live with their eyes waiting for the next influx of cash to come into their life. I don't want them to say being a Christian means waiting for someone to send you some money. And so instead, he wants to be grateful to the Lord, acknowledge their love, and also show them how to keep their eyes fixed on Jesus, even when they're giving and he's receiving, in case perhaps someday they need some giving themselves and they have to wait. So he says, I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. And this is a great line, this I have learned. Some people will translate it, I've learned the secret to being content in any situation. This is something to be learned. This is a skill to be honed, like painting or carving or doing accounting or baking. Learning contentment is actually a skill that you have to learn, but it's a heart skill. It's an emotion skill. It's a mindset skill. It's something that, like learning to play athletics at a competitive level, it takes dedication and devotion to actually train your soul to be content in the right way. This isn't about laziness. This isn't about tuning out from reality. This isn't about forgetting or distracting. This is about contentment. This is about being okay with the situation. And he describes it. He says, I know now how to be brought low. Do you like to be brought low? I don't love to be brought low. If you want to kind of go, you want this. You want the stocks to go like this. You want your feelings to go like this. You want your praise to go like this. You want your success to go like this. But when it goes like this is not something we want. We're often terrible at it. He says, I know how to be brought low and how to abound. I've learned how to do both. And sometimes when we're like this, we think we're doing great, but we're not doing great. We're just abounding in circumstances, but we're not doing great with the Lord while we've got more and more money coming in. We're not necessarily doing great with the Lord when we've got all our health. We're not necessarily doing great with the Lord when we're surrounded by people who like us. It could just be our circumstances. And so he says, to be content in the Lord, you actually need to learn this even when things are abounding. Because often when these things are abounding, you're not content with the Lord, you're content with your situation. So he says, I've learned this secret. I've learned how to be brought low and how to abound. And in any circumstance, I've learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger. I've learned the secret of facing abundance and need. And this is the secret. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Now, one of the things when we're reading this, because of our culture that emphasizes self over everything else, we can read this and go, and let the emphasis be on the beginning and the end of the sentence instead of on in the center of it. What's the beginning? The beginning is the word I. And what's the end? The end is the word me. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. That's the emphasis. And you still got your eyes on yourself. But what actually is happening here is Paul starts with Jesus. I am content with Jesus. And as circumstances change, his faith is that Jesus will give strength or ability or wisdom or whatever is needed to do the task that Jesus has provided. This is how I understand it. Like reading Paul's other letters, he sees himself always before the Lord as a servant of the Lord. And sometimes Paul serves the Lord in a situation that has abundance, and sometimes he serves the Lord in a situation where he feels need. But the thing that Paul's focused on is the fact that whatever is happening, Christ will give the ability to glorify him through it. It reminds me of earlier on in this chapter, even when Paul says, my confidence is that whether by life or by death, I'll be able to glorify Jesus in my body. And he's talking about this is his attitude. Whether by life or by death, or abundance or lack, by the plenty or hunger, Jesus will give me the ability to glorify him in this situation. These things are all connected. I can do all things, not just whatever I want, but whatever glorifies Jesus in any situation by the strength he provides. This is the goal. And so if we want to learn the secret, and we have to learn the secret, if we don't learn the secret of contentment in life, we're going to sabotage every good thing that God sends our way, and we're going to be terrible to live with and hard to work with. The secret is to have eyes glued on Christ and keep telling yourself the truth. Jesus can get me through this, and Jesus can show me how to glorify him through this. Jesus can glorify himself in me in this situation. That's always true as we trust in him. So church, wherever you're at, whoever you are, you can do all these things Jesus brings you to do through Christ, because he will strengthen you by the power of the Holy Spirit. And part of the secret is learning that you won't always feel strong. Sometimes you'll feel tremendously weak. It's part of your circumstance. That doesn't tell Jesus what he can and can't do. So fix your eyes on Jesus. Grow in your confidence that he can use you and supply everything you need. And with joy, set your hands to do the labor God has given you today. Be blessed, Calvary Chapel.